Welcome to Dub Nation, the official show of the Utah Warriors of Major League Rugby. I am Jarom Jordan. He is Banksy. Here's what's on the show today. Jurie van Vuuren is on the move. We'll tell you where he's going, what the Utah Warriors got in that trade. The World Cup begins this week in France. We'll tell you who Banksy thinks is going to win the whole thing. Plus, draft pick Michael Biagi will join the program out of BYU. Plus, Toulouse coming to town next Saturday, September 16th, take on the United States. Can't wait for that one. And the Crossroads Cup, we know when the games are. And it's a big deal because we've seen some pretty good players coming out of that all the way to the USA camp. That is what our show is today. We begin with the Jurie van Vuuren news. He's been traded to Rugby ATL, who's moving to LA. Team name TBD, Banksy, for salary cap considerations. Van Vuuren played in 52 games over 4 years. The Warriors scored 8 tries, including a final try in the season finale at New York. He'll be missed. He's been a huge piece of the Warriors the last couple of years.
He's a big physical factor on the field and one of the leaders of that forward pack. You know, always one of the hallmarks of playing a Utah team, a big, physical, strong running, good with the hands forward pack. And Jurie, of course, with 50 caps over his time in red and black, been a big piece of that at whether he was playing 8 or whether he was playing second row. So a big hole to fill there with the departure of Jurie van Vuuren. He will be missed for sure.
Certainly, free agent signings will be coming up, and we'll see what happens there. But he's been a guy that's been in the lineup for most of the games, 52 games, as we mentioned, over 4 years. So best of luck to Jurie, who we like to call him, or you like to call him, Jurie van Bieber. Had some of the best hair in the league, man.
Jurie van Bieber, man, he just wakes up and that hair looks gorgeous. You know, it's some of the best bedhead in the business. On a team that's known for his lettuce, Jurie has his own lane, and he masterfully crafts that every day before hitting the training pitch.
That guy's gonna crush LA. He's a handsome dude. It's awesome. Best of luck.
Great for LA, y'all. Jurie's coming.
Absolutely. Okay, United States, as mentioned, coming to town to take on Toulouse, Banksy. This is going to be big time, not only for a TV audience, but for the audience in person to see the caliber of the United States and Toulouse play.
Going to be incredible. One of the most storied franchises in all of rugby globally in Toulouse, coming to town to take on the USA men's national team. America First Field. This has been moved to the 16th. It is now Saturday night. If you want to get your tickets and make sure you're in-house for one of the biggest rugby events on any calendar, with maybe the exception of the World Cup itself, get your tickets now at warriorsrugby.com, or you can check out the Rugby Alliance for more.
Okay, the World Cup begins this week. France is hosting, of course. France versus New Zealand Friday at 1:15 Mountain Time. I mean, you could throw in Ireland in there, but France versus New Zealand as the first match of this is unbelievable. Italy taking on Namibia in the first group there as well. Second game with Warriors fullback fly half Cliven Lobser. It's going to be awesome, man. How you feeling about this World Cup? Obviously, we're bummed the United States is not in it, but they get Toulouse coming to town instead. Who do you think is going to win it? How do you think this thing's going to play out?
I think the 4 teams that are obvious favorites right now in the entire pool play, France, Ireland, South Africa, and New Zealand have to be the top 4. South Africa probably playing some of the best rugby that we have seen. Don't count out teams like Fiji to make it through pool play. England struggling, but they'll find form. France really want to win it at home. They've never won a Rugby World Cup, and so they'll look to make a statement against what a lot of people think is a struggling New Zealand side. I don't think so, though. So it's anybody's guess. My pick is either New Zealand or South Africa to win another one.
I wonder if France uses that home turf to its advantage. Like in soccer, there's always this huge boost, right? Obviously, teams that host win a lot as well. That if you're one of those kind of big 4s you mentioned, but I'll go with France. I'll go with the home side kind of rising up, and Antoine Dupont and his group showing up on home turf and getting it done, man. They started off in Paris, and it's going to be fun, man. Of course, Stade Toulousain is one of the hosts there in Toulouse, so it's going to be cool. And the team that's coming over here, obviously the guys that are on the French national team are there with France, but there's a ton of world-class talent still coming to town with Toulouse. So it's going to be fun. Yeah, Ireland, number 1 in the world. They've been playing great. Got some big wins against a big win against New Zealand when they played a couple months ago. So it's going to be fun, man. And hopefully in 2031, when the United States is hosting this puppy, the United States can compete, can win a game or two, can get out of the group. Still looking for that first win in a World Cup. but perhaps it's 27 and then we build to 31. And then we're going to have this thing in 8 years on our home soil. Like, that's going to be one of the biggest sporting events ever to come to the United States.
It's going to be really exciting. I think the USA qualifies for the next World Cup, and we become much like Japan was in the last World Cup, and a real contender to get into the knockout stages with their with the way they're playing. You already see some of these developments with what Scott Lawrence is doing and the crew that he's gathering around him, the way they're building up the young talent now to play into that World Cup over the next 8 years, getting these guys the international experience that they need. All of that is all lining up really well for the USA when we host in 2031.
Can't wait, man. It's going to be awesome.
If you want to get all of your Utah Warriors kit so that you can wear it and support the boys that are probably going to be on the field during the USA Eagles match, or as we look ahead to Major League Rugby 2024, go to shop.warriorsrugby.com. Get all of the fan merch, rock the 4 stripes, and be ready to go in the best looking kit in all of Major League Rugby. Shop.warriorsrugby.com and get it.
Okay, the Utah Warriors had 4 Major League Rugby draft picks. One of them was Michael Biagi, a 6'2", 245-pound flanker from BYU down in Provo. We now welcome Michael to the program. Michael, thanks for joining us on Dub Nation, man.
Thanks for having me. Excited.
Hey, I obviously a big fan of yours at BYU, and my old roommate Steve St. Pierre, our Utah Warriors family, knows all of my roommates had something to do with Utah Warriors or BYU. But what was it like to hear your name on draft night and stay home here in Utah with the Warriors?
It was pretty exciting. It was very, it was a very surreal moment. I did not see that coming. Of all the teams that I was watching in the draft, I especially had not seen Utah in the first round. I was a little thought in my head popped up, like, ooh, what if I'm the next one? And there I saw it on draft night that the Utah Warriors selected me, and all my family members texted me saying, I guess you're staying home.
So what does that happen? Like, as that goes down, do you know, like, when the commish gets up, when Nick is like, and with the bluggity pick, or do you get a call from Coops? Do you get a call from Wayne? Do you get a call from Kimball? How does that happen on draft night for you?
So actually on draft night, we all gathered up around the TV to watch the draft go on. And by the time the second round came on, we lost the signal to the channel.
Oh, no.
So I ended up finding out on Instagram that I got drafted.
Wow.
That's like getting broken up with a text message.
Yeah.
Like, everybody else knows before you do.
Yeah, it was a lot of mixed emotions going through my head. And then a few hours later, I did get a call from Robbie Abel, one of the coaching staff at Utah, and he kind of walked me through it, how excited they were to have me. And after that, I just been getting ready to come back home to Utah to get ready to go to the Warriors.
That's amazing. You guys had such a good season this year. You went to the semifinals, taking on Cal. Navy ends up winning the whole thing. It was a great season. And you were actually a walk-on linebacker on the football team before moving to rugby. Kind of walk us through your journey at BYU to get to this point.
So I think a step before that, I went to Provo High School for my last year of high school in Provo, and then I actually didn't know if I wanted to do college at all. I was a little kind of wandering through that post-high school life, and then some family members of mine talked me into walking on to playing football at BYU. So I said, hey, I'll give it a shot. I got accepted into BYU and did some summer training, and thankfully made it onto the BYU football team. Never played football before that.
Wow.
Shouts out to Coach Sataki and everything they've been able to put together then, man. Teaching a kid that green how to play ball, that's awesome.
Yeah, I think I was a little skinnier back then and worked hard and tried to make it onto the football team. I was there for one season, fall of 2018. And then I actually had a few friends on the rugby team at the time, and during Coach Steve St. Pierre's first year, and they said, hey, you should come play rugby in your off season. I said, sure. I did football. I can probably do rugby as well. I'm never playing rugby before that either. And the rugby team has tryouts every year, and went out to tryouts and made the team. and I guess the rest is history.
Now, it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone that knows you how well you pick up those things. An incredibly intelligent young man. You actually went to school for neuroscience? Are you going to be like a brain surgeon, bro?
No, I guess that was an old major of mine.
Was it? Okay.
I did switch majors eventually. I graduated in applied statistics. That was my.
Oh, because that's so much easier. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Just casually.
Yeah.
What do you want to do with that major?
There's a lot of like data roaming around in the world, and a lot of tech in Utah, especially. I think that's the route I want to be taking, is working with data, especially in sports. Would be like a big dream of mine, is using data collected from sports and helping teams and players have a more successful career from that.
That's awesome.
Utah Warriors looking for a chief data analyst. Maybe you can just slide into that chair. Just be part of the front office already, bro.
Yep.
You played in the Collegiate Rugby Shield, so we got to know you a little bit there. How was that experience, and how much do you think that helped you get picked?
Oh, that was amazing. I loved it. I was a little nervous going into it, not knowing much about it, and the history is not very long of the Collegiate Rugby Shield. And once I signed up for it and I got accepted, and thankfully it was only about a 15-minute drive away from me, ever since that first meeting we had, getting to meet all those incredible athletes there, I loved every moment of it. It was so fun and made us feel like professionals, and it was a great experience.
Now, on top of being multicultural, you actually speak several other languages too. You grew up speaking several. Talk about like where you're from and your background a little bit, and give people a peek behind the curtain to who Michael Biagi really is.
Yeah. So I am half Tongan, half Italian. My father is Italian. My mom is from Tonga. And growing up, I did pick up a lot of Italian and a lot of Tongan, and I still pick it up a lot. And long story short, my dad and I moved to Mexico when I was about 9 years old. Moved out there, and I lived there for probably about 8 or 9 years. So I learned Spanish in high school and middle school, grew up playing basketball and speaking Spanish with my teammates. And now currently my mom lives in France, where she remarried a rugby player that played over there. And I go visit her very often, and I've now picked up a lot of French as well.
So hang on. So English, Tongan, Italian, Spanish, French, right? Is 5 or is it 6? Am I missing one?
Maybe a little bit of Utah slang as well.
You know things like pert near and kitty corner
and sloughing.
Yeah, sloughing.
Yeah, exactly.
That's wild. What I heard.
Okay, yeah, and it was Chihuahua, right? That's the state.
In Guadalajara.
In Guadalajara. Oh, yeah. Okay, so I talked to you about this a little bit at the CRS, but you played on the U16 Mexican national team for basketball.
Yeah,
and you played against some future NBA guys, right? Who were they again?
I played against Jason Tatum. I played against some of the names are blank. One of the guys, he's on the USA team right now. That's in the FIBA World Cup.
Yeah.
It was a wake up call. Definitely playing against some major athletes.
Did you get a bucket 16. Against Tatum?
I did not.
Look, if he did, he would have led with that, because I would have led with that in every conversation ever. It didn't matter what I did. That would be my one go-to story, man.
I think if I dig deep enough, I can find some highlight reels where I'm underneath the basket getting dunked on.
Couple posters here and there somewhere.
Yeah.
What an incredible experience. So would you say you grew up playing basketball the most?
I did.
Basketball the most, and then you picked up football, and then you picked up rugby.
Yeah. That's
Anything
right.
else in there? Some soccer?
I did play soccer. You kind of have to, growing up in Mexico. You either you play soccer or you don't play a sport at all.
Yeah.
And I kind of naturally transitioned over to basketball as I grew a little taller.
Yeah.
And I quickly started playing more competitive leagues. And then once I came to the U.S., football was definitely the more dominant sport.
Well, at 6'2", you got to be a starting center in Mexico, right? At 6'2", you're probably not a short for a point guard in the USA.
Definitely.
Did you also
At
Did
Provo
you-
High, I was a
Yeah.
power forward.
At 6'2", even then.
At 6'2".
Yeah. Did you? Now I read that you also lived in Ukraine and Azerbaijan. Is that true?
Yeah. My dad was a very secretive pilot who worked on special helicopters at the time, and that required him to move a lot. And I was his little travel buddy, and I got to live in places such as Kyiv in the Ukraine and Azerbaijan and Thailand.
Mm.
So
Is your dad James Bond? Like, what is really going on here? Like, you go to all these cool places, do all these cool, speak all of these languages. You are the most interesting man in the world, Michael Biagi.
There's no one like you.
That might be trying out to be the American James Bond.
That's awesome, man. How has sort of all this life experience helped you become who you are, and ultimately will aid you in this kind of, I assume you're kind of more comfortable than the average person in like, all right, this new experience is not going to be as hard as when I did X, Y, or Z.
I think it just allowed me to adapt to any situation thrown at me. I mean, it's easy to be complacent, and like I learned a lot that things can change, and you just gotta learn how to take the best out of every situation. And I always leave like an experience a little bit wiser and a little bit smarter in the next move. And I know in this young MLR still, there'll be some curveballs thrown at me, and I think I'll just have to take whatever's thrown my way and kind of roll with it.
So who else have you been able to connect with on the team then? Obviously, you know, having gone to school here, a lot of the guys live here or are from here full time. Who have you been able to connect with so far?
Yeah, Calvin Whiting, I think is a good friend of mine, and he just left the BYU team when I joined the team, and now he's been a great part of the Warriors ever since. And I know that Paul Lasike is another BYU Hall of Famer, and I do know Bailey Wilson. I've been able to know him before he got to the Warriors as well, and I think that helps, is just knowing a few faces at the team, and hopefully I can get a little bit closer to them now that I'm part of the Warrior family.
Well, just so you know, half the other side of the team speaks Tongan, so you're already in with a foot in the door there too. So you can count Saya in, you can count Hunga in. There's lots of other guys that you're just going to fit right in. I have a good feeling.
Yeah, I hope so too.
Are you planning on playing in the Crossroads Cup this fall?
I'm not sure. I haven't heard much about that. I am here in North Carolina for another 5 weeks or so. So I might be coming back to Utah towards the tail end of the Crossroads Cup. But after seeing some of the games from last year's, it looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah. And
something I'm going to be a part of.
We're going to talk about some of those guys that emerged the last year from that. Kaji Young-Yen among them goes from the Crossroads Cup to the United States, getting capped in Europe. Like, it was this crazy ascension for him, which is pretty cool. Well, Michael, great to get to know you, man. Most interesting man in the world. Best of luck with everything with the Warriors, and we'll talk to you soon, man.
Perfect. Thanks for having me.
Michael Biagi on the program, Banksy. Have you met a more interesting person in your life?
I mean, and the guy is in his early 20s and has experienced more life than most ever will. What an incredible young man, and excited to have him as part of Dub Nation for sure.
His ascension is one of those great stories, right? Taking up rugby at BYU, now tremendous career down in Provo. Now he's in MLR, and we're gonna see him perhaps this next year as one of those young flankers, perhaps off the bench. We'll see him with at least the selects, maybe the Crossroads Cup at the tail end, maybe with the 23 at some point. So that's pretty cool, man. Our thanks to Michael Biagi for joining the program.
And now let's share with you something really special. After the USA Eagles versus Stade Toulouse game, we are going to attempt to set a world record. And part of that is part of a wish from a couple of young kids that we've gotten to know here at the Utah Warriors. Let's share with you a little bit the story of Hadley.
Hi, I'm Hadley. Join me in the Utah Warriors, where we will break world record, the largest rugby scrum. It's a big hug. We need 3,000 people. I just forgot the name. Team USA, join me at the rugby match, September 16th. Team USA versus Toulouse.
Oh, great job, Hadley. Can't wait to see Hadley out at the game on September 16th between Toulouse and the United States. And listen, it's going to be the friendliest scrum ever. Hadley and everybody else involved there for an attempt at a world record. It's going to be pretty cool. And again, that's coming up Saturday, September 16th, 7 Mountain Time, America First Field in Sandy, Utah. Get your tickets. If you're out of town, you can't make it. It will be on FS2 on Saturday, replayed on FS1 on Sunday. Toulouse played 3 games in the top 14. That's the French domestic competition. They went 2-1. 9 players from Toulouse made the 33-man roster for France in the World Cup, so they won't be with the team. But trust me, it's a loaded squad. USA coming off a 1-2 trip in August up in Europe. Banksy, what are you expecting in this game, which is one of the greatest spectacles of rugby in Utah history?
I love the contrasting styles here of the big physical downhill running that the American team has become known for, the line breaks with the big, heavy athletic players that we've been able to develop now. And you pair that with what the French have become known for, which is really good technical play at the set piece. And then they like to play sideline to sideline and really throw the ball around, which we know this Utah Warriors team and our Eagles can do really well. So there's a contrasting style here that I see we continue to develop under the leadership of Scott Lawrence that I expect that we'll build on in this match against Toulouse.
It's going to be awesome, man. It's not a test match, so no official caps handed out, right? But I'm hoping that Bailey Wilson gets a look for the United States as one of those home guys. Thomas Tuivau, not sure what Joe Mano's availability is. Didn't make the Europe squad. I don't know if that was for work or a mild injury at the end of the season or whatnot. Hoping to see Joe. Obviously, Paul Mullen, Kaji Young-Yen, or some of the others in the mix. Mika Kruse as well. So there could be a bunch of Warriors involved.
There could be 6 or 7 guys from this Warriors team that feature prominently on that squad. And when you talk about somebody like Thomas Tuivau, who played really well through Europe, and then we look at somebody like Michael Biagi coming in, who's almost Tommy 2.0. He has that same IQ, that same ability to learn, that big physical body around the tackle area. You know, there's so much development going on right now with these young guys that guys like Thomas, guys like Michael, guys like Bailey Wilson, all of these additions that we've made to the Warriors are the players that are going to feature in that 2031 World Cup with 8 years of experience behind them now. And what head coach for the USA Eagles, Scott Lawrence, is doing is really spectacular in getting these guys minutes and recognizing who that new wave of talent is.
It's going to be fun. You're the public address announcers, so those in-house are going to hear your amazing tones. I'm going to call the game with Mike Petrie and Ashley Solomon, so it'll be a ton of fun. We're super excited to be involved in that. And again, it's one of the greatest rugby events in Utah history. Make sure you get out to this game. They moved it to Saturday to accommodate as many people as possible. Get your tickets, get out there, be a part of that world record scrum after the game of at least 3,000 people, if not more. It's going to be fantastic. We've been looking forward to it for a couple of months, and it is here next week.
And once that's over, don't forget, there's more rugby on the docket after that. Fall rugby, the Crossroads Cup. 4 incredible teams representing regions right here in Utah as they continue to develop prime talent and make Utah the epicenter for rugby all across North America. So many incredible players have been discovered through the Crossroads Cup, and now you can be there for all of the games and support your local teams and your local players. This is where you see professional players mixed in with the local club guys, the tradies, the guys that are just trying to catch that break. And you never know, we may find another Joe Mano, Takaji Young-Yen, Jeremiah Noah Esse, another one that came up through the Crossroads Cup that was discovered there. Who's going to be next? It could be you, or you could see them and say, I watched them play before they got big. Do that at the Crossroads Cup.
This is like if you watched Mike Trout play for the Salt Lake Bees before he went to the Angels. Like, this is the opportunity you have, right? Saturday, September 23rd, it gets going just a couple of weeks from now, ends on October 14th. As you mentioned, notable alums from the Crossroads Cup. Joe Mano, Joe, was in the Crossroads Cup.
I've heard of him.
Jesse Hamilton came on the scene in the final game last year. Kaji Young-Yen goes from Crossroads Cup to touring with the United States and getting capped twice. Jeremiah Noasi, Siosi Nai. So there are some guys that really made an impact for the Warriors and, frankly, the United States. So many of these guys will play on the selects team as well, which is a sort of the second team and play prominently into the senior team. So it's going to be fun. As you mentioned, that is going to be a cool tournament. It's a cool thing that started last year, so we're into the second annual. There's no such thing as first annual. You know, it's the inaugural. You have to do it twice for it to become annual. Now it's annual, baby. So here we go. And what's cool about the Warriors, Banks, and we've talked about it, they do a lot of things in the community and in that pathway to create these opportunities. The Crossroads Cup is one of them. We're in the second annual. We just had our second annual Collegiate Rugby Shield, obviously Junior Warriors, and so on and so forth. There's a lot going on with the opportunity to not only as a fan see them, but potential players to jump in this pathway. And then the ultimate is, make the World Cup. But we're going to see the United States show up in Sandy against the French champs. Like, this is sort of a flex of rugby in the Beehive state the last couple of months here.
And it's fantastic to see as well, with such a rich history, with all of the club rugby that's been played with Park City Haggis, of course, the legacy of Highland Rugby, United Rugby, the storied history of BYU Rugby and the University of Utah Rugby team being perennial top 25 teams in their competitions, the up-and-coming Weber State program that's there. Utah State has a long history of rugby. There's so many growing clubs that continue to build and expand on that, and this is a chance for us to continue to develop those young players, to develop those partnerships with all of these clubs to allow these kids to really shine so that you find the next Joe Mano. And full credit to the entire front office staff, the coaching staff, everybody that commits so much to it. Our very close friend, Ashley Solowin, Ollie Khalifi, Fetz Vanicolo. So many of these guys that are alums from the Warriors programs or that are part of the staff commit to giving back to the community. And there's a reason it's one of the 4 pillars of this club. And it's because we are built on the shoulders of those who went before us. And many of them are the old boys from these clubs that are now raising the next generation of rugby players right here in Utah.
It's exciting. And on our next show in 2 weeks, we'll be recapping the United States Toulouse game. We'll be looking ahead to the Crossroads Cup a little more. And we'll continue to talk to new signings and new assistant coaches and new draft picks and everything throughout the offseason. So stay with us. That'll do it for us. Like and share this episode of Dub Nation. Follow the Utah Warriors on social media. For Michael Biagi, the most interesting man on the planet, Mason Benson and Banksy, I am Jarom Jordan. Go Warriors.